Placing the carriage on a Pro Series printer. Typically you'll have the ink arm installed here. It's mounted with two Phillips screws right here, and then there are two self-tapping screws which hold this bracket in place, and they are mounted just like that. I've already installed a new carriage, so with your carriage, to remove it, you're going to have to remove these two Phillips screws here. Then it will allow you to remove and get this out of the way, which is the ink arm. So I'm just going to place this ink arm down here in the meantime. Before you start, make sure you got the printer power unplugged, including the USB cable. I have a drill with a number 2 Phillips head on it, needle nose pliers, and a small flathead screwdriver. I'm not sure this size. I believe it could be looks like a 2mm size, but just make sure it's fairly small here. So let's remove the top plate first. This top plate holds the halogen lamp. So when I unscrew these two following screws, the lamp's going to fall down. So be careful not to allow it to fall, because it may damage the lamp. So you see I'm holding the lamp. Let's try that again. And just put that on the flatbed. Remove the last screw. Remove the top plate. Put that on the flatbed too. The encoder strip and timing belt on the left side you can remove by pulling on it, and it unclips from the clip here. Same thing with the timing belt. If you pull on it and just turn, it will unclip from the gear. Next, we're going to do is grab a small flathead here, go on the right side of the printer. You see a lock washer. This lock washer, once I position it just like that, you can unclip it. Do not lose these lock washers. I'm going to place that on the flatbed. And then there is a spring here. I just unclip that. You can leave that there, that's fine as well. What I typically do is then remove this the gear and place that on the flatbed. Same thing on the other side of the printer. What's important before you remove it, you notice that there are two arrows pointing directly at each other on the gear, and you may even have a marker that lines them up. So pay attention to that when you line it up and place it back together. Same thing, locking washer. Remove that. Another spring here. Unlock that. We just leave that there for now. Then what we're going to do is grab the drill again, remove these two screws, remove this bracket. Place the screws on the flatbed, same thing here. So this removes. And now we are going to grab the needle nose pliers. You want to be careful because there's this little plastic clip here lines right up in the center of it. So when I remove this, you're going to see it's going to pop right up, and that's exactly what it did. So you just got to be careful where that pops out. Let's place it on the flatbed. The encoder strip. This, you see how wiggly this is? How much play that is? Because normally this will hold it in place with the help of the supporting bracket. So that's why you see it moves back and forth. So you see what happened? I unclipped it here from the shaft. Now, in order to remove the printer carriage and the shaft, what we have to do is actually unclip the timing belt gear here. So we're going to have to go to the back of the printer here. In the back of the printer, the spring is right there, holding the clip. So what I do is, I'm going to grab the spring with the needle nose pliers and just unclip it and just leave it there hanging. So then once it's unclipped, we can then detach this gear. which will allow us to remove the shaft. So now that that's done, the gear on the left side, I can pull that out because I know where it's locked into place. So that's the gear on the left side. Pull that out. The other tension spring. Now the encoder strip I can also remove. You see that? So I just removed the encoder strip. There's a spot for it to go back in place right there. You see? So I'm going to remove it. Pull it right out. Now for removing the carriage. So it actually pivots. There's a spot right here on the carriage frame. So I'm going to pivot it towards the carriage frame and pivot it, and then actually pivot it straight out again. So you see, when I remove the shaft, set it aside on the bed, this is the carriage. Inside the carriage, you'll find that there are two cables for the printhead. Then you have one cable that's plugged into the control board. You will have to detach the black mounting bracket for these cables. And the way that they are installed right now is if I go to the back here and hold the back of it, they are clipped. This bracket's clipped in. So if I hold it and then slide it to the left, you see it unclips everything. These are the clips right here. They line up. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those are the clips. So I'm going to remove the bracket now. This is going to, it may be a little tricky. So once you remove the bracket, if you follow the cable, just disconnect the existing cable. So I'm going to follow it and disconnect it here. It's going to be taped in, which I just did. So let's untape that. That should be fairly easy. Sort of. There we go. And it's plugged into the control board. So there you go. Then if we follow the cable on the opposite end, it actually plugs into the main logic board. So if you follow the cables, here we go. So that's one cable, that's two. Yeah, two more here, which are 11 and 12. So 11 and 12. And we just unplugged 13 and 14. So this is the mounting bracket. I'm going to remove it so that when you install the new one, you know how to install it and route the cables through. So all I'm doing is just removing this cable from the bracket, or the housing, sorry. So you see here, it's almost like you have to pivot it into place. So I'm gonna position this again. Just giving me some more slack here from the inside of it. Position the cables again. So if we're pretending that this is a new carriage, what you basically need to do is make sure that this cable coming from new carriage feeds through correctly. What I mean by that is making sure that the timing belt isn't tied into place, or sorry, isn't tied between that cable. Because if you, for example, place this cable through the timing belt here, what will happen now is you got the timing belt between both cables. Be careful not to do that. So I set the timing belt just aside like that. So you have the new carriage here. We will make sure that you feed it through correctly. So remember, printhead cable on the right side, carriage cable on the left. So we're going to feed this through. If you're not sure if you got it positioned correctly, you'll see a hand with a stop sign on it facing this way, facing the left side. That's how you know you got the cable in the right position. Okay, so now we're gonna do is at a point on both or all of the cables, there's a crease. Right beside that hand side, there's a crease, actually, a bend, which is I would say about 3 millimeters in length. And that bend acts as a pivoting point for when you place it onto this housing. So we're gonna actually go to that little bend here and use that as the pivoting point. So here's the bend. This is the point right here. I line all cables up evenly, and then first seat it into the pivoting point first, right here, just like that, and then pivot it in. If it doesn't work the first time, do it again. So I'm gonna take it out, and it's difficult to get all of them, so that's why I'm holding it about an inch apart. And you see that? So I pivot it in, and that works a lot better. You see that? And then I'll pivot it back up. So pivot it down, pivot it back up. Now that's in place. So then the other tricky part, or not tricky, but the other detail part is making sure you route the cable through correctly. See that? There's little brackets at the top and bottom here. So let's route that through. Top, bottom, and so on. So same. Now this one cable that plugs into the control board, if there is no crease in it, you will need to bend a crease in it, just like this. To bend it up, bend another crease in the opposite direction, so that it can route through the back here on the right side and feed through the control board. So let's go ahead and do that here. So I'm gonna grab my slack back through the slot location, line up the carriage first, so I can move this carriage down, get that out of the way. So when I line this up, I make sure all the clips are in place first before I slide it to the right. So they're all in place now. See that? The clips here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's 5, there's 6 clips here. So, and I'm holding it with all my fingers here. And I slide it to the right, and you see that locked into place. And that's how you put the cable housing back. So let's go ahead and go on and plug this cable back into the control board. And you see here, because of that, the bends you made, it should allow you to follow it through. And then here, what you want to do is grab a double-sided adhesive sticker to stick this to the back of the printer frame. And then you make another bend in the cable. Then from there, feed it through the hole in the printer frame. Make another bend here. And then, of course, another bend so that we can plug this directly into the control board. Be careful when you're working with this printer, you're going to find that there's a lot of grease. Which means you do not want any grease on the silver metal trace lines. So make sure that's perfectly clean. Now we're going to, and of course there are no bends or crimps or damages, or else it will result in error. So plug that back in. And there you go.